Welcome to Helping Teams Under Stress. How many of you in your work life have had to help a team of people who were about to tear their hair out or could barely speak to each other anymore? Oh, duh, that's why you're here in my workshop, right?
I don't think you need one.
They say it makes the sound better if I use it, so I'm trying to be cooperative. I'm not good at rules, but I'm trying to be cooperative. Okay? What we're going to share here today, guys, this is not academic. Now, the names were changed to protect the guilty and the innocent alike, but this is a real case study, and I'm going to let you explain the case and let y'all have conversations at your table, because there's a lot of type knowledge in this room. Let you apply that, and then we're going to go into what I did during the case, what I applied, what I used with the team. I worked with them for 3 months. I can't be showing all of it, but I picked out some key points that really help them make headway. And I've actually got slides that show coaching. I was present a little material, then ask them coaching questions to have them self-reflect and apply it to their own work. So what you're going to see on some of the slides, I'll point it out, is my coaching question and how they answered in the room. And I'll be describing to you how it played out and what were some of the big breakthrough moments they had. Because bless their hearts, they did have some breakthrough moments that were very rewarding. So I don't know about you, but this is usually how I got the distress call. I walked in my office and that little red button was going off. I knew nothing good had happened if my red button was on first thing when I got in the morning. So this is a call from a manager their entire division had come through my workshop. I call it Working Effectively with Others. That time I just did temperament and type. You know, of course I do interaction styles because I have seen light. And they called. She had been through the workshop. So I don't know if that happens to you, but they've been to the workshop, something happens later, they can't help it, and they go, oh, you know, that was that woman. That was that woman. Maybe she can help us with that, right? So I get the call, and bless her heart, she had ESFJ preferences, which meant she led with what? But the non-anatomical answer to this question would be, her function was extroverted feeling. This woman was in a lot of pain because what was happening was every one of this team's one-on-one sessions with her, most of their time, their one-on-one time with her was over how hard it was to work on this team. Now think about it. Think about how draining this is for her. Think about all these other things that they could be doing that adds to the bottom line. And instead, it was about the pain. Now, I also want to say, these were not grumbly, no account, not working hard people. These were earnest, hard-working people who had hit a wall, the wall of psychological type. And they did not know the name of that wall, and they didn't know they'd hit it, but they were going to discover it, and they found their way through it. And the main presenting problem was we had a couple of ISTJs, and we had an ENFP. OMG. It was so stressful. It was painful. Now, you've got this, please get the handout on your table. I want you to be able to see this and keep this in mind the whole time. And your handout actually has even more information. You have the 8 functions on there, so please look on your table and get that. I'll be asking you to refer to this. So this was the team. It was a team that put on events for a large company. It was a logistics group. Guess who's in the logistics group? Yeah. The 2 ISTJs are in the logistics group. And who are the marketing liaisons? The 2 intuitives on the team. I mean, you know, you could not make this stuff up. This is how it happens. And this was the ESFJ manager who was trying so hard to help them, but nothing she was doing was working. And that's when she called me and came to my class. So this is just a little summary page. You've got all that information, but I just wanted to draw it out. We've got 2 ISTJ team members. Look at their 8 functions. They lead with introverted sensing. That's going to be important. Support that with extroverted thinking. They're stabilizers, and they're both chart the course personalities. So there's a certain way they want to do it, and they're, by the way, in perfect agreement about how we ought to do it. liaison folks. They're both catalysts. Different styles. There's the ENFP, get things going, and then there's the behind the scene INFP. Guess which one the ISTJs were having the most trouble with? The ENFP, bless all of their hearts. And the manager who leads with extroverted feeling was feeling all of this pain. So now first, before we go into interaction, I want to go over 3 caveats. I probably learned most of this, if not all of this, from Linda Barron, so I take this very seriously. So just know that going in with when a team is under stress, it would be lacking responsibility if I didn't say this. A team under stress and things not working, please don't assume type, temperament, interaction styles. Please don't assume our tools are what's going to help them fix this. Because things in certain situations, our tools are not going to be helpful. So we should not assume, we should investigate first. First caveat, guys, don't use it when it's gotten toxic. That is a much deeper, more intense intervention, and this is actually the word I got from Linda, they will weaponize it. Do not use it once things have gotten toxic. Second caveat, beware the client, usually a manager, who wants to fix one person on the team. Oh, I don't want to have a conversation with that person. That would be uncomfortable. I know, I'll call Carol, and I'll have her do a workshop to the whole team, and then I never have to have this conversation. How many of you found yourself in that situation? Yeah, I've actually turned down work as an independent, telling somebody, no, you really don't want to pay me independent to do a workshop. You need to have a conversation with this person. Let me help you do that. So I have talked myself out of work because even though the money would have been nice, it was not the right thing to do. That was not the intervention she needed. The third one, please tell me if any of you been caught in this trap. The estimation of someone else in the department that your type workshop is exactly what that group needs. Have any of you ever fallen for that? Oh, I fell for that. Long story short, fell apart big time. I ended up having to stop the workshop and do an OD intervention in the middle of the workshop. Anybody wants to buy me a mojito, I will tell you that story. It was a story. So I did what any OD person does going in. The managers, the client has come in, the power client, remember the manager's power client, she's come in presenting. So what do? I go around and have a conversation with everybody. Have a list of questions, ask the same 4 people the same 4 questions. And there's some really good news here. One thing I discovered is these people were in pain and they were honestly struggling. Nobody was trying to do anyone else in. Nobody was being toxic. Nobody was, as we say in the South, being ugly. These people were sincere, hard-working professionals, but they had hit a wall because their preferences were so different. It was just painful and they didn't know how to get through it. And the second thing is, and this was my saving grace, the connection between what they were struggling with and their preferences was like textbook case. I could have not asked for a better situation. Guys, when you see that correlation between what they're misunderstanding and struggling with about each other and what their preferences are, it is a blessed day, and you can go in there and do some good. So first of all, just a word, remember this is not fiction made to look pretty and everything worked out perfectly, okay? This is real. This is historical, it's imperfect by nature. I'll talk about some lessons learned. And at the end, we can talk about some things we might do differently. For example, I was not using interaction styles then, and I think interaction styles might be a very good thing to have pulled into the mix. So we'll talk about a few things and let y'all talk about some things you might have wanted to use with these folks. So just so you've all got, for those of you who came later, there's a handout on the table. Please pass around and share. So that's in front of you what the group looks like. Now I want you to put your heads to this. We're going to talk about what I did. You've all got type experience in this room. I want you to look at that type table, and that's just another version of that information. And at your table, pick one of these and talk about it. What out of psychological type might be helpful to them? What out of temperament might be helpful? A function theory, hint, 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 I really did go into some 8 function stuff with them that was very helpful. If you want to talk about the step 2 facets, interaction styles. So at your table, I'm going to give you about 4 minutes, and please have a conversation based on who these people are in the room, how you might, what tools you might think might benefit them.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, how are you?
Good, Julia. Carol. In brief, the 8-function model says in addition to your 4 preferences, you have 4 non-preferences.
Okay.
That's very, very simplified.
Okay, yes, okay.
Very often it's one of your non-preferences that comes up. When they say what you okay, we have 1 ASTJ, 1 on the team, it's, what is it, 2 ISTJs, 1 INFP, and 1 INFP. So I think, what is the function? And I look at what is the function? I mean, for ISTJs, their dominant is divided sensing, and that's the immediate function. For INFP, it's the tertiary. So, now, where it could be right. But I don't think Rose is doing an intervention with her. I think she's intervening with the team. So the dominant
Do we know what role they are?
they're just on a team, I think, or consider them peers. And they can't agree on some things. You're supposed to go forward and, I don't know, what do you think the ISTJs are saying? NFPs.
We did this whole table, or just one of them?
No, we're just looking at these ISTJs, and I think ISTJs.
Oh, okay.
I think let's make it simple.
Okay, studying you.
Focus on those, and I mean, I can tell you what my struggle with being with ISTJs. I'm in INFP, so I think my struggle they just want to do everything the way it's been done in the past, and I want to change it up and have something new. You know? I mean, why are we having the APTi come into the family? Why are we having a new place? Yes, that's should be an FP first. And especially if things aren't working, we got to keep changing them.
Sure, we can do that. I think it's pretty problem. I'm saying yes, we can do that. So,
Thank you for paying attention to the question.
Because every day when you talk about anything, same
You're supposed to decide.
and F would be right. Exactly. So there's conflict there.
Right. I think that's great. And I think got that one answered. I'll go with you. Right. I mean, I use interaction style.
If I can have your attention back to the front, y'all are doing stuff right. I hate to interrupt you, but let's get some more information out here. What was that like? Have that conversation. Anyone like to share something that came out of your table, something that said, "Hey, I think this could really help these folks." Yes, ma'am.
We were talking about the temperament theory could really help here. Carol was in ENFP and she was talking about her personally her challenges that she knows with ISTJs, and those can be encapsulated here just by using temperament theory, because you have two ISTJs, but you have an INFP and an ENFP, and so there's NF-SJ differences. I mean, you have 3 SJs and 2 NFs, so that would definitely help.
And there was clear stabilizer, catalyst, tension. We're going to do some other things, highlight some other things too, but absolutely, good spotting. Anything else anyone wants to call attention to? It's okay. You had a good idea too. Okay, so the magic combination, what I did that really pulled these people through and they responded too well. First of all, you let the models themselves depersonalize and defuse the issues. It is incredibly powerful because remember, when they're in their manager's office, it's Mary and John and Susie and Molly, okay? The models take all of that away, and it's not about that. It's about when we're in this function and when we're in that function. We'll get there. 2, use coaching questions so that you go, it's not just theory. You use coaching questions to go from what the piece of theory is to how this applies in your situation. We'll get some of those. Also, forgive me if this is overkill, but guys, we have to be so careful with our language. It's not what John sounds like. In this case, it was what extroverted intuition might sound like. Question I threw out that helped them a lot was, and what happens if you bring up extroverted intuition, searching for options, really late in the game when we're trying to wrap it up? See, that's not about John doing something at that point. That's about when we go into that function, and we get to choose what function we go into if we're willing to get conscious of it. Or not how Mary sounds this way, but how extroverted thinking may sound more fully decided than it really is. That was a profound moment. I'm going to share that with y'all later. Very helpful. So we're going to do an activity. It is after lunch. I don't know how many of you saw the session with Bobby Kaplan's clock, but I'm doing this not just to do an exercise, but I actually used this for the first time with this team, and it was profound what they got out of it. How many know about the Z problem-solving model and the, oh, there we go, very good. Okay, so, oh, by the way, this, before we get there, this is, I gave them an outline. At the beginning of the summer, I went through all their stuff. I said, hey guys, looks like to me these are the kind of things we're going to be exploring. We had 90-minute sessions, and, you know, it was distance. There was somebody not in town. There was one virtual member. So we did sessions after initial meeting, we did sessions over the phone, and this idea helped so much. In their regular meetings, everybody at the home office attended in a conference room. What do you think that experience was like for the member who was not in the conference room? Couldn't hear anything, how can they fully participate? For these webinars, you had to attend this meeting in your office by yourself. All the people in the home office were in their own offices, nobody was in the meeting room. The woman in Chicago, now everybody was on equal footing and everybody could participate, and it made a world of good. It made a world of difference. So these are just the kinds of things that we looked at going through, and I'm going to show you sample sessions of what I did with them. And we're going to start with the Z problem-solving model, because the problem was they had such different preferences. They were talking different. If you look at them as different languages, they were talking different languages all the time. And if I told you that Mary's speaking German and Bill's speaking French, you would so totally get it why they're not moving forward. But if you think, oh, they're both speaking English, what's the problem? Well, they were both speaking English, but one of them speaking extroverted thinking and one of them speaking extroverted intuition, and won't get off of it, so it's not helping. Now, I need 4 volunteers, and I want to do this the way it really was on this team. So, and we'll ask somebody to pretend to be a type if we don't have that in the room. I really do need 2 ISTJ preference folks. Do we have 2 ISTJ? I promise you this is not painful. I'm not going to embarrass anybody. I'm not going to make you pop or anything. Thank you. But I'm promising not to embarrass.
Yesterday, I would have volunteered.
Okay, if you please come up here. May I have a pretend ISTJ who, for the purpose of this exercise, would be willing to stand in for an ISTJ for me as a personal favor today?
Oh, Carol!
Thank you so much. Now I know this part is no problem. I need an INFP and an ENFP. If I could just have a volunteer of each, I'd really appreciate it. An E, oh, come on, an ENFP and an I, thank you. Which are your preferences? INFP, now I need an E. Carol, I'm going to grab you if nobody comes.
No, I'm sure there's lots of them. Here's one.
Here's one. And if you would all stand over here together, and what this now, in a nutshell, we want to start with sensing the concrete data, historical facts, the things we know, right? We want to start with the facts and the data. Then we want to move to, well, what are possibilities here? What are things we haven't thought of? What patterns do we see in this? Because if we never look for patterns, we just end up solving the same problem over and over again. Let's learn to look for patterns and solve it at the level which we started at. Now we need to go, now we've gotten all our perceiving done. Let's go to our judging functions. Let's go to thinking. Let's apply analytical reasoning. And then let's do the thing almost no corporation on the face of the earth does. What a concept. You come over here and you think about how is this going to impact the people involved? How many of you, just if you would mind sharing, how many of you have been in a corporate setting and you saw something important fail miserably because when that plan was enacted, they totally discounted the impact of the people? There you go, the story of corporate America. Thank you for being honest.
It didn't discount it. They didn't even consider
Exactly.
it.
And that's what the power of this embarrassingly simple model is. And here's the deal. You put the model up, and you just act like it's perfectly normal and everybody does this. And of course we would go here. You don't act like it's anything strange at all that we're now going to consider the impact on people and the value. Now, I like to use a more updated 8-function model. So, introverted sensing, we'd be looking at things in the past, what worked, what didn't. Extroverted sensing, we'd be looking at more in the moment kind of stuff. What are we not noticing right now? Extroverted intuition, brainstorming, possibilities. Introverted intuition, you know, it's even got just a hunch about something. You hadn't figured it out yet, but there's just something you think might really be going on here we need to look at. Then when we come down here, extroverted thinking, all about the plan, right? All about planning and executing. What's introverted thinking about? It's analytical reasoning, but how is it different from extroverted thinking? They're in here, says Mary. It's building a model in your head and you use reasoning to understand what the issue is, which is very different from applying reasoning to scheduling the problem-solving event. What a concept. We might actually come to understand what the real problem is. So let's use some introverted thinking to do that. And let's come over here. How is this going to impact the people involved? We need to consider that if we want to be successful. How does this line up with our values? Are we violating any of our values? So you have a model, and you just go through the model, and you help them with the parts of it that aren't present in the room. Because right, if folks aren't in the room then you might have to help them do that. So thank you so much for being so patient. So now I'm going to do what I did with the group. Now here's the deal. You have to move when I ask you to move. Okay, this is the deal. Okay. Now then, we are starting over here, and with this team, by the way, because these 4 types all have the same things in the conscious realm. So we are literally going to go with this group of people from introverted sensing to extroverted intuition to extroverted thinking to introverted feeling. That's what was present on this team. So I used Bob McAlpin's formula, and you allow there's nothing like scientifically exact or precise about this, but it's trying to express we tend to want to spend most of our time in our top 3 functions, and we tend to ignore the 4th one and spend less time there. And that just wreaks havoc on teams. So we're in our team, we're planning an event, we're coordinating with marketing, and we're doing introverted sensing, and oh, it's 4 minutes after the hour. Who's the ENFP? Okay, and her name is Jeanette. Her name is Jeanette, and she's really John. Okay, so at 4 after, she's had it. This is her inferior function, and she has totally had it with all their introverts. She's drowning in data. And so she's dying to go over here and talk about possibilities and patterns. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So aren't you happy over here? I can see her face. She is happy over here. So now it's 12 minutes past the hour. Okay, our INFP has had it. She has had it. This is her third function, so she was going to hang out here a little bit longer. Now you are dying to get over there and extrovert your intuition, right? 12 after the hour she goes. Now our ISTJs, or our token ISTJs, they are still happy as can be talking about data, because after all, what's real? Data! We need to talk about data. So they're hanging out over here. Oh, it is now 24 minutes after the hour, and these guys are still very, very happy over here at Extrovert Intuition, right? And as 24 minutes have gone by, how long have they been apart? They have been apart for 12 whole minutes now. So now at 24 hours, you are going to condescend to walk across with them and dabble a little in extroverted intuition. So you go over there at 24 after. 4 minutes have gone by. Our ISTJs have freaking had it. So done with all this airy-fairy, in-the-sky stuff. Let's go do some analytical reasoning and schedule this freaking thing you all just keep talking about. So our ISTJs, they're gone. We are still talking about possibilities. And we are having a fantastic time over here talking about possibilities. So now then, it's 32 minutes after it's 28 minutes after the hour. Oh, you know what? You've gone over there to extroverted thinking by now, the ENFP. You have. Because remember, we started in her inferior function. She only spent 4 minutes there. 28 minutes after, 4 more minutes go by. Okay, now you're going to condescend to try over there. It's 32 minutes past the hour. Now we're all in the same place again. This is very exciting. And we're all going to be in the same place doing extroverted thinking for exactly 4 minutes. And now, the INFP, remember, extroverted thinking is her inferior function. 4 minutes is a long time in your inferior function. So you've had it, you're going over there introverted feeling so long. Now, this is your tertiary function. So the INFP, she's going to hang out here a little longer, right? So we're doing the extroverted thinking thing here. Now, and now it's 40 minutes after. Okay, you're done here. You want to we need to go to introverted feeling. You're happy, and you're done. You're going off there, and we're kind of still over here in extroverted thinking.
We really want to hang out here.
Yes, because doesn't it make sense to be able to be logical with extroverted thinking? And we're hanging out here, and hanging out here. Oh, it's 48 minutes into the hour, and now you're going to condescend to go over there and do some introverted feeling. And we're there, yeah, y'all gonna be there 4 minutes now. Now y'all are done because that's y'all's for it. No, yeah, I'm sorry, they moved earlier, sooner. Introverted feeling is actually your tertiary. So you're willing to spend 12 minutes over here, remember? It was extroverted intuition, you only allowed 4 minutes. Would you please thank these folks for talking? Thank you. Bob McAlpin actually has some beautiful cards, which are in my study in Durham, North Carolina. And I called him and I said, Bob, would you bring me another copy of beautiful cards? He said, sure. And then he arrived and said, I forgot the other cards that we were using. But trust me, this is a real thing and you can buy them from Bob McAlpin.
But how do you do it with people in separate rooms?
Oh, excuse me. This first session we did, they have been flown in for. Once or twice a year they got flown in. You're right. This works. You know, I'm sure we could put our minds together and do a virtual version of this. What happened in the room when I did this with them? When I said, you know, the extrovert intuitor, he's ready, he's done, he's going on now, talking about possibilities. The ISTJs died laughing. Because they thought this is the story of our life with this man.
When the day was over.
And as they moved, and we showed how they were in such different places at different times, for some reason with this group, something about the physical movement and the symbolic of standing there and seeing you're not in the same place. Guys, I would, and I'm sharing this with you because I would not have intuited this, okay? I really wouldn't have how big an impact this made, letting people get up and get physical. But they started, remember this was a team that was pretty stressed out. They started laughing, and they weren't laughing at each other, they were laughing with each other. And something really broke through, was just this, and later on, they said in the debrief, that was one of the favorite things they did all summer, was that. So if you would, I don't want to leave this with that you get to reflect. A couple minutes at your table, please talk about that and what you see the value in that. Yes, question.
Can I ask one question? Why didn't you include the manager in that setup?
Oh, this is a very good question. Thank you for asking that. I didn't put that in the course. Here's the deal. The manager's a power client, and if you have a power client in the room, that changes things. And the problem was really that they needed to be able to work on their own. What was not working was them working on their own. So no, she did not participate in this. And she was very, she and I had a head-to-head beforehand.
I would
She was
imagine she
very
did not like being not included.
You know, being extroverted feeling, I can see why you would say that. But we had a good conversation and we talked about, they did that work on their own and we really needed it. And she was very understanding. But you're right, because she was extroverted feeling, I did have that conversation with her. Excellent question. See, this is why you come to TITE conferences. You get really intelligent questions about TITE. Okay, if you would, at your tables, have a discussion with that. Talk about ramifications. Have any of you used this? Yeah? Talk about this results you got, what use you might see in this, then we'll move on.
We're talking about sarcasm. Well, believe it or not, I have seen this presentation before, and I like it so much. I am always inspired. And she's really good at this stuff, so I always learn something. So yeah, I had a head start. I've seen all this. I'm your cheat sheet.
We appreciate it.
No, but I can tell you what this makes me think of. That, and what happens for me when people are into talking about data, a long time ago, theory really seems to enter my unconscious. I mean, I may be physically present, but I'm out. I'm totally, you know, I cannot keep focused beyond a certain amount of time. So I think that's really what I see happening. You know, that we each have, if we're working out of our preferences, it's so hard to stay conscious of it.
I think that's really good. I like how it's just in a healthier way they were in the which they did this, but we saw a video and they did it on the channel. So it's an interesting thing to repeat it in this way. Saying it, I guess, 2 times in a row. How are we going to exercise keeping in the road different really made it so I guess I really liked it. Exactly what you said.
One more minute, we'll continue. One more minute.
How are you and you know, when you're in different spaces, I was seeing on YouTube together, but I never really
What I noticed, somebody is talking about from introverted thinking, that they're talking about theory, models.
And if I can have your attention back to the front.
Actually, I put on a sweater.
If you can hear the sound of my voice, please look at me. Thank you so much. And I really, honestly, I hate to interrupt you because y'all were just really going at it. And that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Does anybody need to ask a question or want to say something, make a comment? I don't typically do these physical things, so I was very, very happy with what great outcome I had with this group and how meaningful it was. So I don't know about you, but I would not have intuited what a great outcome, how meaningful that would be to them. Yes, ma'am.
So doing this where you move people and the exercise for the realization of the difference between the types, and which is amazing, but how would that actually work logistically if you were doing, if a group were using the model for a problem-solving issue, and then you have people in different spaces, like how does that work?
Right. When you're using it to solve a problem, you facilitate the conversation. You say, okay, now we're gathering data. What concrete data? And then we have that discussion. Is there anything we're missing here? Okay, how about, is there anything happened recently or right now that's different we need? And then you talk them through to each one. And what you're doing is you're teaching them to move together. So you don't let them move separate when we're actually doing work to solve a problem. You facilitate them consciously going to the next piece of the puzzle that helps them solve the problem. And you get them to have the feeling, bring the feeling functions in just by virtue of you just facilitate it. Is that helpful?
Yeah, but I mean, do you honor that, like, if the you need to gather more data in the beginning because of this particular problem, that you kind of set it up in the beginning, okay, well, some of you might be checked out by now, or do you facilitate that level of it as well?
Actually, I would in the moment. And the information gathering really should happen before it gets in the room. So what they're doing is talking about it.
Right.
We did have one very interesting thing happen, and that's the ENFP was not happy to make decisions as quickly as, who can you imagine? He was so not about closure. And what he learned from this is that he was not about closure quickly. And he learned, this is one of the things he learned. He learned to say, guys, I just don't feel like I have enough data yet. And then I taught him was, so make an agreement with them. Guys, I really got to get some more stuff where I'm comfortable deciding. Let me look into this tomorrow. When we meet on Friday, can we address this again? Now, what do the ISTJs have now that's helpful? They have a deadline, and that's a kind of closure. We have agreed to gather more data, and we'll finish this on Friday. John didn't know how to ask for that. By learning about these differences, they learn how to ask for what they need. They learn how to recognize what's going on, and they learn how to ask for what they need. Thank you. Good question. So designing the interventions. Now that first piece, they were all together. Thereafter, they were not together. I had done the one-on-one sessions with them. This is the whole series. I had done the one session with everybody together, and then I did the 3 90-minute webinars. Remember, we discussed, don't let anybody sit in a conference room together. This was all virtual. Everybody sits in their own office. And that put everybody on equal footing, and we did a series of 6 of those over one summer. And we made, that may not sound fast to you, but seriously, we had some profound things going on. And now I'm going to show you, this is the things I used. I helped them validate their type preference. They'd all been through my workshop. I analyzed what the differences were, and then I designed 90-minute modules. I looked at what their differences were. I remembered what I was hearing, and I designed models to help them to explain the difference, to help them self-reflect, discuss how this might sound to someone else, and then to see how they could prevent misunderstandings. And guys, we're going to get into that right now. These are some sample modules. Now the text in green, these are their actual answers. What I'm going to be showing you are things they literally said that will let you know this thing had an impact and they really heard something and they could immediately apply it to their situation. And that's what makes it not just, something that goes away. If you design it in the workshop with coaching questions and an application, they apply it. So, these are some sample modules, and I just said all this, their answers are in green. So this is what I literally gave them at the beginning of the summer, long-term agenda. I had all these possible things, and we had 90-minute sessions, and you know what? We got as far as we got 90 minutes. The point was the learning. The point was not to have them on a certain clock. But we had it mapped out. So the ISTJs knew I wasn't just meandering all over creation, right? I showed them at the beginning of the summer there was a plan, and we're going to visit these things because these will help you communicate better. So those were all that was just a list of all the different perspectives. We discussed, for example, the difference between sensing and perceiving and how that might sound different. I'm going to give you a minute. I'm not going to read this to you. I'm going to give you a minute to read this. But I gave them these examples, asked them to go over of what's the difference between introverted sensing and extroverted intuiting. And think of those as two languages. And then I'll show you the coaching questions. Let me give you a minute to read this. And if you would make eye contact with me when you're done. I learned the hard way when I didn't say that when I walked past a table and people were discussing golden retriever rescue. that's when I knew I need to tell people to give me the signal that you're through that. Does this land for you? How these different things sound? So I did that so they could start thinking of how it was really sounding when they used it. So I said, introverted sensing. When is it you guys use that? And they answered, recalling data facts, how we did it before, what worked, what different. Examples, giving examples, asking somebody for an example. That would be giving them concrete. Extroverted intuition. They gave me this. I mean, guys, they really applied it. They really got how this applied to their lives. Possibilities, patterns, unseen things. What kinds of things, and I would ask, what kinds of things might you be talking about here? And they really took this and applied it. And then I said, introverted sensing. When do you use that? They replied, trying to decide whether to repeat an event done last year. Was it successful? What kind of attendance do we have? And one of them said is holding on to old issues. I would have never suggested that. Isn't that profound? That occurred to them. That memory function could keep them not letting go of something that been upset. Lessons learned. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? Keeping that list of facts. Checklists, processes. Remember, these were folks planning events. There were lots of checklists going on here. Budget considerations. Would you say they got what introverted sensing is about? And they got how they used it? Extroverted intuition. Of course, most of these answers came from the ENFP. Well, any sentence that starts with what if or how about. And bless his heart, the ENFP was always what ifing and how about it, which was driving some of the behavior. Brainstorming for large events in the overall planning process. They acknowledge it. Yeah, you know, when we do start out for a big new kind of event, we do some of that. What if this, what if that? How do you see these differences as a strength for your team? Gives us a bigger picture. Now that they're using both of them now. Lessons learned, challenging, helps us move things forward. Realizing handling specifics is important in our work, they said. And this was a powerful moment. The ENFP preference team members said, the introverted sensing drowns my extroverted intuition. How powerful is it that he got that what those other team members brought to the table was grounded for him? That was his insight, not mine. And the answers on that says, how do you think these differences have gotten in your way? Look how they did their problem solving. One sentence email, that's not helpful. That's sure going to help us get in our way. Some people need more details in order to know what you're talking about. So they realized that the two intuitive feelers probably needed less to go on, and the two introverted sensing preference folks probably wanted more details up front, and that they needed to honor that. Cause frustration. Because you need to be focused on the same thing at the same time. They realized that the differences, while they were strengths, caused frustration. Some of them replied, well, I really like to decide and move on. This is what we're going to do. So they were getting it, how this affected. How can you manage the difference? Moving to their idea, not mine. Moving together from discussing the facts to discussing the possibilities. Not doing it. Not doing what if out of order. I asked, at one point I said, What do you think happens, John, when late in the process? Let's think about it. When we get stuck, what do? We go to our hero function. We go to our favorite function. Well, if you lead with extroverted intuition, doesn't matter where you are in the process, you're going to go back to get your hammer because that's your favorite thing. So I said, and we talked about what extroverted intuition can be like for the people. I said, think about, remember the humor of Robin Williams? And how it was kind of ping, 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 and it was funny, right? Unless you're trying to work with it. It was actually funny when it was a comedian. And I said, and extrovert intuition is going all over the brain to connect disparate things. And John said, I must sound like I'm all over the place sometimes to them. And I just let that land. And we just let there be silence. How marvelous that he got that. And not in a derogatory way, but oh my God, that must be what I sound like to them at times. So he got it that he needed to reel in and not go into that later. Because trust me, the two ISTJ preference team members, oh, bless their hearts, they had so had it with him at times. But in his defense, he was just trying to use his strongest function to solve a problem. He did not get it, that it was blowing him around. So we describe what they sound like, and all of a sudden he gets, oh, that's the impact that's having on them. I get that. And in none of this are we making anybody right and anybody wrong. We're talking about what functions work best for them.
Are those some examples of your coaching questions?
Oh, thank you. The orange questions are my coaching questions, which were to help them go from the theory we just talked about to applying it. And I'm showing you just a couple parts of a couple modules here. In every single module, I did a piece of theoretical learning, as tiny as you can get it. And then immediately, just enough for them to remind them and know what we're talking about. And then ask a coaching question, and then let them tell you how this applies and how they use it and what it sounds like when they do it. And guys, they did it. It was really clear from their answers. They could hear, they knew what these functions sounded like, and they could apply them. So yes, that's exactly what happened. Yes, Eileen.
Why is it important to go from sensing to intuition in that order? I mean, I see myself in meetings all the time where the crazy talk, the brainstorming goes first, and then the sensible and logical thing will come later to sort of mop it up or put it in some sort of, doable fashion.
And
why would you do that?
I can imagine that would depend on what kind of environment you're in. I can imagine at ad agencies, the crazy, zany brainstorming is always where everything starts, and then you start to, okay, let's get realistic here. But I'm thinking in most business offices talking about a process of putting on an event, you're going to start with what is known, what do we have, what are our parameters, what's our budget for this? Doesn't do any good to brainstorm having the space shuttle as part of the program if we don't have the budget. So let's talk about what's real. It just seems a natural order, unless you're in that one of those creative space service spaces, which I can imagine would start like that. Thank you for that insight. Here and then over there.
I just thought about her question, her comment, because also the sensing piece allows you to get information to scope your brainstorm. So
There you go.
where are we going to cover the brainstorm so we don't miss something